Here is yet another expected, but still profoundly awful, disappointing, psychotic mass shooting that happened yet again in the country where, in the only country where it seems to happen all the time. Dadeville mass shooting in Alabama. 4 people were killed and 28 were injured at an Alabama birthday party. It wasn't just a regular birthday party. It was a Sweet 16. You know what I mean? It's like, these are little kids, from what I understand. Number 1 in the world for mass shootings. You already know. Tragedy struck Alabama Saturday night as gunfire erupted at a Sweet 16 birthday party in the heart of Dadeville, killing 4 young people and injuring 28 others, some of them critically. The investigation in Tallapoosa County lasted throughout the day Sunday with no announcement of any arrests in the case. Now, what's really interesting about this is that the police have given very little details on what actually took place, how this happened, who the suspects are. Did the suspects die? Did the shooters actually die? Did they get away? Is there an active shooter that is like running around? So we don't know, but most of the injured are teenagers.
4 people were killed and 28 others hurt. Most of them were teenagers. Now, this happened at a dance studio in the city of Dadeville, Alabama. Witnesses report that there were multiple shooters, but so far, police have made no arrest in this case. There have already been 31 mass shootings just this month in America.
Like, I'm even noticing the media coverage change around this to show you, like, how our culture surrounding mass shootings like this is changing a little bit. Like, even they're saying the unthinkable happened again. As in, like, there is an air of, like, sarcasm in that sentiment, right? That's actually very important to recognize here. Which means that, like, gun violence is becoming so normalized that our coverage and our response to it as a nation and our lack of action against it is basically expected. I think that it's no longer seen as like inconceivable. You know what I mean? It's a very, very scary, very dark, very grim future that we are living in now.
Police have been very tight-lipped about this investigation. There's a lot we do not know. We don't.
Like, I don't understand. I understand why this happens all the time. I've covered this story, this exact same story, a million times over. What I don't fucking understand is how the cops are not revealing more information about what is going on in this tiny ass fucking town, dude. This is not a major hub. It's a small town. Everybody knows each other. How the fuck are the cops not giving any additional information about who the shooters were? Did they die? Are they running? What the fuck is going on?
Know how many suspects they're looking for or how many suspects they're looking for, if it's 1, 2, based on what witnesses are saying. We don't know what kind of gun was used. We don't know the motive, but we're hoping to learn more at a press conference later on.
We are now moving on to Missouri. A teenager was shot after going to the wrong house to pick up his brother. And the person who shot him was questioned by the police and then released. Let's take a look.
16-year-old Ralph Yarl is recovering in the hospital in stable condition. His family describes him as a typical high schooler who loves to play the bass clarinet. He has been looking forward to starting college and majoring in chemical engineering. Police say Yarl's family say that he was given the address 115th Terrace, but he mistakenly went to a home at 115th Street instead. The shooter has been released, and there is sparking protest nationwide right now and outrage nationwide.
2 points of clarification concerning the shooting of Ralph Yarl. The suspect was not detained for 24 hours. He was released in under 2 hours after providing a statement to the police. 2, police recorded a statement from Ralph in his hospital bed on Friday. So, like, they already have his statement. This particular situation, it's an old racist ass dude, I'm assuming. And they were just like, oh, he's just an old guy. You know, he doesn't mean harm to anybody, you know, except for the obvious harm he's conducted. So, what are we going to do? We're going to put him in fucking jail? He might even be like an old cop or something. Emerging details of the incident illustrate the strength and bravery shown by the high school junior after he was shot. A neighbor who asked not to be identified tells CNN she called 911 after Ralph came to her door bleeding. She was directed to stay inside her home by the emergency operator for her safety as the shooter's location was unknown. I wanted to help him, but they kept saying, we don't know where the shooter is at, the woman said. She complied initially, then went outside with towels to help suppress the bleeding. I kneeled down next to him and I said, what's your name? Who shot you? She said Ralph explained he was supposed to pick up his brother We figured out then he went to the wrong street, which is no excuse for what happened, she said. This is somebody's child. I had to clean blood off my door, off my railing. That's someone's child's blood. I'm a mom. This is not okay. While waiting for the ambulance, bleeding from the injuries to the left side of his head and his right arm, the neighbor said Ralph told her he runs the high school track team and plays the bass clarinet in band. He was very alert, she said. He's a very strong man, very brave. Jarl was shot in the head, which cracked his skull and left him with a critical traumatic brain injury, the attorney said. While the teenager was still on the ground, the homeowner opened fire a second time, striking Jarl in the upper right arm. How the encounter turned violent so quickly still confuses Jarl as he recovers, his aunt Faith Spoonmore said. We'll remind him, like, Ralph, you're alive, buddy. And then he has the times where he's like, why? I did nothing wrong. Why? I did nothing wrong. And he just cannot understand why, Spoonmore said. So it's waves. He goes through waves. Merritt said Jarl is now in stable condition and out of the hospital. Police have not released the name of the race of the resident who opened fire. He was taken into custody and held for 24 hours, the maximum. He was not held for 24 hours. Why is everyone in the media saying he was held for 24 hours? Merritt said the teenager miraculously saved his own life by fleeing and banging on at least 3 neighbors' doors for help. 3. And on the third home, Merritt said the neighbor told Jarl to lie on the ground and put his hands in the air. He complied and then passed out. So even that fucking last neighbor who was like, I'm a mom and I wanted to save his life or whatever, it seems like even she wasn't so fucking nice. I don't know. Maybe they weren't home though. Well, actually, you know what? I bet the mom that came out with the towels and shit was a separate party. Because the person who called 911 said that there were people around the kid that were like looking down at him. Merritt said the neighborhood where the shooting occurred is predominantly white and conservative and commonly referred to among locals as God's country. We've heard reports from black people who live in the neighborhood, who visit the neighborhood, that there seems to be a standing hostility towards black presence in that community. Karen Skinner, who has lived on 115th Street for more than 30 years, said the shooting in her neighborhood surprised her, given how her block is typically quiet and crime isn't an issue. It's a neighborhood in which I'm not even going to walk on my neighbor's yard because they're all very well manicured. Yeah. Skinner said, adding that the street includes many older white homeowners whose children have since grown. In recent years, newer families have been moving in, including a black family, she said, but most residents keep to themselves. By the way, that's what they mean when they say there's no crime. They just mean like there's no presence of black people in our neighborhoods. Yeah, someone in the chat also said this, but in a lot of instances, a lot of people themselves don't even fucking recognize that they're living in a sundown town because they just simply never see black people around. So they just take it for granted and think like, oh no, like there's no crime here, right? And they don't even realize like their neighbors are fucking psychotic racists half the fucking time because, you know, there's no additional racist component, triggering their outwardly aggressive stance against black people in the sense, and by that I mean the presence of a black body. But also a lot of those people are also blind to these realities, you know? They're blind to the realities of white supremacy in this country. They're privileged. They are unaware. They don't recognize it. So they think it must not exist here. Media is reporting that the Kansas City man who shot Ralph Jarl, 16, is a white man in his 80s. He hasn't been rearrested as investigators consider whether he's protected by Missouri's Stand Your Ground law. The reason why Stand Your Ground exists as a law is so that the guy who shot this kid, this teenager, can get away with it. That's like the entire purpose of Stand Your Ground. The whole purpose of it is like, oh, I was afraid. It gives you almost cop-like powers to do what cops do all the time. This isn't Stand Your Ground. This is Castle Doctrine. Castle Doctrine is the original version of Stand Your Ground. Stand Your Ground laws that are designed in places like Florida and whatnot actually come from the Castle Doctrine. It's the same principle. Stand Your Ground is simply a continuation of the Castle Doctrine beyond the Castle Doctrine, outside of your own house. You do have a right to defend yourself, okay? You just don't have a right to offense yourself, okay? You can't do like offensive maneuvers normally at the behest of defending yourself, which is why Castle Doctrine and Stand Your Ground exists to begin with. Unruly crowds unacceptable, but don't demonize youth. Brandon Johnson, Chicago mayor-elect. Chicago officials are reacting after unruly crowds gathered downtown near Millennium Park this weekend. Oh, I saw videos of this. Viral videos show large groups of people disrupting traffic, dancing on cars, getting involved in fights. Police said 2 people were shot late Saturday night. Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson's statement is grabbing national headlines. I know why it's a big deal. Every year, hundreds of kids go downtown and go crazy for a day. Wait, that's like a thing that happens in Chicago? I don't really understand. One day the whole city goes wild. I don't know what this is about. Yes, most just take the train from the south side down to the loop. Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson's statement is grabbing national headlines, saying it part, and we should not demonize the youth who were a part of it. That's probably not what they are saying. When I came back, this whole area was lined with, the street was blocked out by a wall of police. The groups were seen running around, jumping on cars, CTA buses weaving in and out of oncoming traffic. 2 teenagers were shot near Michigan and Wabash Avenues. A 16-year-old boy was shot in the arm. A 17-year-old boy was shot in the leg. We've had it almost every year. I just think the police feel that they don't have support from the mayor and stuff to really do what they need to do. Mayor Lori Lightfoot responded to the violence. We've taken steps and we'll take the steps to address these teen trends. It's not the first time we've addressed these issues, but our young people have an opportunity and a right to enjoy the entirety of our city, but they have to do it in a way that is respectful to people and property, and we did address that over the weekend. Dude, I don't fucking understand. I don't. Like, for the record, I hope everyone personally recognizes that teenagers going around and doing like a purge-style night is profoundly unacceptable, okay? Obviously. I'm not going to fucking sit here and be like, no, let them have their fucking fun. No, of course not. Especially when the fun that you're talking about involves like assaulting people, okay? But there is a way to fucking avoid that reality, okay? How do you do that? By offering those teenagers opportunities. Literally, after-school programs are profoundly impactful in lowering this kind of fucking crime, okay? Lowering this kind of activity. Like, that's it. That's it. Make a fucking community center. Put a basketball league and other sports leagues and other fucking unique interests that teenagers may have. Put a fucking land center. It makes me so mad. Yo, you say they have that? No, they don't. Those things are so devastatingly fucking underfunded. And they basically don't even exist. The idea that they have like adequate after school programs and adequate opportunities is stupid, okay? They don't.
Mayhem on Michigan Avenue and other places downtown Saturday night, resulting in fights, damaged vehicles, and terrified tourists as groups of young people took over the streets. 2 teenage boys were shot.
Of course, overall, this kind of shit is awful. It shouldn't justify the vicious cycle of like further police funding, which, by the way, those dipshits in positions of power are going to use this. And also all of the wealthier residents of Chicago are going to say, we need more money for the police to make sure that this never happens by doing what? I guess killing some teenagers. I suspect that's what they think will do a good job of like stopping this crime wave in Chicago. Sean the Black says, bored kids do stupid things all the time. It's not unique to Chicago. It's not a problem until that will be fixed by the police. Absolutely. Absolutely. This happens every fucking year, apparently. Do something about it. And by that, I don't mean build a fucking more violent state apparatus to like kill teenagers. In order to counter this, design social programs specifically around summer, especially when like school's getting let out early, or if school is out in general during spring break. A lot of this shit happens when they don't have anything else going on. Chicago is simultaneously one of my favorite cities and also full of the most annoying kind of lib. The oop, let me scooch by you, hun type lib. They come off not as evil as they are. Oh yeah, 100%. You fucking slap a Patagonia vest on and you say the most unhinged violent screeds about like what to do with black teenagers and their fucking parents. But you say it in a way where people don't immediately understand how bloodthirsty you are. Oh, well, you know, it's fatherlessness. We got to work on it. Yeah, right? You're right. Oh, we got to work on that, don't you know? I don't know why the Chicago guys are talking like this, but like we got to build a wall around the beaches, don't you know? I'm born and raised in Chicago, went through CPS as a kid. Even 15 years ago in the elementary school I went to, we ate in the hallway for 8 years since we didn't have a cafeteria. The roof was literally rotting in some classrooms, and most after-school programs would get canceled left and right. Yeah. We are going to move on to this fucking CEO who, it's going to trigger the fuck out of you probably. I'm just letting you know, trigger warning. It's going to trigger the fuck out of me too.
Questions came through about how can we stay motivated if we're not going to get a bonus? What can we do? What can we do? Some of them were nice and some of them were not so nice. So I'm going to address this head on. The most important thing we can do right now is focus on the things that we can control. None of us could have predicted COVID. None of us could have predicted supply chain. None of us could have predicted bank failures. But what we can do is stay in front of our customers, provide the best customer service we can, get our orders out our door, treat each other well, be kind, be respectful, focus on the future because it will be bright. It's not good to be in a situation we're in today, but we're not going to be here forever. It is going to get better. So lead by example, treat people well.
This is a Zoom call from a CEO who canceled the all-employee bonus but took a $6.4 million bonus herself. What the fuck?
Talk to them, be kind, and get after it. Don't ask about what are we going to do if we don't get a bonus. Get the damn $26 million. Spend your time and your effort thinking about the $26 million we need and not thinking about what you're going to do if we don't get a bonus. All right? Can I get some commitment for that? I would appreciate that. I had an old boss who said to me one time, you can visit Pity City, but you can't live there. So people, leave Pity City. Let's get it done.
I can't begin to describe to you how much I despise this pathetic person. This is absolutely insane. We are not going to do calls to violence in the chat. You will get banned for it. Shut the fuck up. Don't be stupid. But oh my Lord.
Thank you. Have a great day.
This is like, is this from a fucking movie? Like, what's happening here? There's no way this person is this fucking villainous in the real world. There's no shot. No, I need additional details. Miller Knoll's fiscal year has not yet ended and bonus decisions have not been decided, including for Owen. Nevertheless, the clip was soon enough circulated online, leading to public anger. The company representative said that the clip does not show the full context of what she described as a largely positive meeting. Oh, guys, it's okay. Guys, you don't understand. The rest of the meeting was so sick, though. The context is missing from her sentiment where she told off her workers to suck it the fuck up because they're in, verbatim, in her words, Pity City. According to salary.com for 2022, the president and CEO of Miller Knoll Inc., Andy R. Owen, the woman that we were looking at, made $4.9 million in total compensation. Of this total, $1 million was received as a salary, $1.2 million was received as a bonus, and $800,000 was received in stock options, and $1.4 million was awarded as stock, and $300,000 came from other types of compensation. Herman Miller used to be a company that, proudly had union factories and domestically manufactured its product, which was very expensive, obviously, as you guys know. Luckily, there's a lot of opportunity to find them secondhand, used, especially since COVID eviscerated going into places of business. There you go. El Moro Rosa is saying the same thing. If anybody wants a Herman Miller, search for refurbished ones. They are a fourth of the price in an office that had a ton of them that went bust recently or changed locations and the batch sold them secondhand. Yeah. So this was an interesting story. From what I understand, the fucking Cashapp guy was stabbed by someone who apparently knew him. But originally, that didn't stop everybody in the San Francisco area from running with the crime is rampant here narrative. It seems like it wasn't just like a random stabbing that occurred, but instead one that was premeditated. But, like I said, that didn't stop people from cutting propaganda to claim that, look at San Francisco. Look at how crazy crime is in San Francisco. People are getting stabbed nonstop.
Cashapp founder Bob Lee, who police say was murdered by another tech entrepreneur on a San Francisco street. New court documents allege a possible motive in the attack.
Breaking. Mission Local has learned the San Francisco police this morning traveled to Emeryville to make the arrest of April 4th killing of tech exec Bob Lee. The alleged killer also works in tech and purportedly newly, right? And meanwhile, motherfuckers were saying this. Our society seems to have become seriously complacent. 100 years ago in San Francisco, people were publicly hung for their crimes, often by vigilante groups that wanted to send a message. The hangings worked. Crime would plummet after a few of them, often many months at a time. Very sorry to hear that. Many people I know have been severely assaulted. Violent crime in San Francisco is horrific, and even if attackers are caught, they're often released immediately. That's not true. Okay, that's not true. It's just a fucking fanciful narrative that they just make up that like a person that stabbed another person is immediately released from police custody is the most insane fucking thing. And yet people believe it for some reason. Oh my God. The only time when someone who is violent, but is released after being in police custody is when they are like an old white guy, or they are the guy who drove his car into a fucking BLM rally. Okay? Hate to say it, but that is the only time.
This morning, 38-year-old Nima Momini, now behind bars for the stabbing death of tech exec and founder of Cashapp, Bob Lee. Police say the two men knew each other and got into an argument shortly before the horrific attack. In the hours leading up to Lee's death, prosecutors say a friend who was drinking with Lee and Momini's sister earlier that evening witnessed a conversation where Momini had asked Lee if his sister had been doing drugs or anything inappropriate. Lee allegedly reassuring Momini nothing inappropriate happened. That night, police say Lee joined Momini and his sister at the Millennium Tower, where the two men later left together and drove off to a dark, secluded area in Momini's BMW around 2 a.m.
Mr. Momini was driving. They ended up in the area of the stabbing, and that is where they exited the vehicle, and approximately 5 minutes later is when the stabbing took place.
Let's watch this. This is breaking news, some good news. Let's do some good news from friends of the show, More Perfect Union. TV and movie writers just voted to authorize a strike that could shut down Hollywood. Writers are making less than they were 10 years ago while corporate profits have skyrocketed, and they are not standing for it. Let's take a look.
I write for a show called Abbott Elementary that's on ABC, which is a traditional network, but the next day we're on Hulu, and a little bit after that we're on HBO Max and Disney Plus. So the amount for...
I can't wait for this to be, of course, not received as like a real working class labor union strike because they're Hollywood, you know, or they're black and gay, you know, typical like aesthetic focused fucking weirdos will overlook this kind of labor action.
For a re-air on the network is $13,500, and the amount that you're paid for that episode being on new media streaming is $700.
Television writers are being paid less money for these complex, multifaceted, unique narratives that bring companies like Warner Bros., Disney, and Netflix billions upon billions of dollars every year. And now, writers are understandably at their limits. And soon, that could affect you.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Right now, Hollywood writers are in a heated contract dispute with the 9 largest production studios. At the center of that fight is something called residuals, one of the most important ways that writers get paid.
Residuals are payments that are made every quarter by the companies to the writers for the content that they create.
The WGA contracts that currently exist were built upon a model where the content providers generated the revenue through AdSense. So if you have a favorite show that you loved that you can't find anywhere anymore, it's because those content providers don't want to pay the creators of the show for the right to air.
Yeah, I mean, every single battle in entertainment that has been fought over the course of the past, 5 years have almost always and entirely revolved around streamers, because streamers are owned, like the streaming platforms, they're owned usually by the major, the major publishers themselves. So it's a way for them to squeeze out more profit from the same works, the same IP.
It is absolutely undeniable that the streaming platforms are generating mountains of money through their subscription base. What they're choosing to do with that money is an entirely different question.
There's this misconception outside of Hollywood that writers are bougie, six-figure people who live in palaces in Beverly Hills, and why are they complaining about what more compensation? And couldn't be far from the truth.
We are making less money now than we were making 10 years ago, and the industry is shifting to prioritize streaming, and none of our pay structure or the amount of money that we're paid reflects those changes. They are treating everything like TV operates the same as it did 10 years ago, and I think everyone, even viewers, know that's just not true. The industry needs to catch up.
If push comes to shove, a strike is incredibly important to show these companies that we mean business and that we won't stand for them trying to take our livelihoods in Hollywood.
I found out my neighbor in my modest apartment building was a writer for a pretty famous show. They're definitely not getting paid 6 figures law, especially not anymore. There was a time and place in America where you could have like one commercial jingle and you could like get a fucking fat stack of cash off that shit. You know what I mean? Those times are long gone. Not like a real viable career any longer.